Hello everyone, this is Margarita. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back. I wanted to share some ideas in today's video for any stamps that you might have that sometimes you can't figure out what to do with. So I'm gonna give you some ideas on creating some monochromatic pattern paper. I have here a few different colored cardstock sheets in 8.5 by 11 inches. And I also have on the right hand side some stamp sets that I'm going to be using to show you how I'm going to make some pattern paper. I'm going to be making some mini slim cards as well using the results of my pattern paper stamps, or my stamped pattern paper. I'm trimming my paper down to 3 inches. I'm leaving the height the same, so I'm not cutting them any shorter, and that's because I want to be able to pick the best area that I've stamped before trimming it down to the size that I want for my cards. So my stamped pieces are gonna measure 3 inches by 8.5. I do save my leftover pieces for other projects. And I'm just speeding this up so you can see the process, but it's not taking forever. Once my papers are all trimmed down, I'm going to start my stamping. So I have here 6 pieces. I do make 6 additional pieces beside these. I start with some distressed ink. I have here worn lipstick is what it looks like. And then I have this Studio Calico stamp set and this little scalloped stamp. I normally wouldn't know what to use that for, maybe like an edge or something like that, or I don't know. So we have a lot of stamps like this sometimes that come in a set that we don't know what to do with them, or we just find that we just never use them for anything. So I'm going to use this one to create a pattern on this piece of paper. And I tried to pick an ink that was close in color so that I can have a monochromatic look. I'm grabbing a T-ruler just so that my first stamp is sort of straight. I'm not looking for perfection. I don't intend to make them all super straight, but I do want my first one not to be very crooked. So I'm using the ruler as a guide. I'm inking up my stamp now, and I'm just shifting my ruler out of the way because I don't know why I have such a gigantic acrylic block, but that's what I grabbed. So once my first stamp is on, I'm going to move my ruler out of the way, and then I'm going to continue to ink up my stamp and add images to my paper. And we can speed this up as well, and I'm going to continue this process until I have added this image all over this strip of paper to create a pattern. And again, my pattern is not perfect. It doesn't have any particular like exact pattern. It's just, I just want to cover the whole piece. And this is what the end result looks like for that piece. And now on to the next color. This is Abandoned Coral Distress Oxide ink. And again, now I'm going to pick the little flowers that are in this set, which again, I've never used for anything. I grabbed those 2 and put them on a small acrylic stamping block. And I'm going to ink them up, and I'm going to start randomly adding these little images onto my paper to create a nice full pattern paper. And I'm making sure to turn my acrylic blocks so that I'm getting different angles and it's not just the same over and over. This way there's more of a sporadic look to it. You can use these pattern papers that you've created for for card bases or for details inside of your cards. You can use them for note cards. You can use them for scrapbooking, pretty much anything. You know, you're just creating your own pattern paper versus something that comes from a paper pad. And this is the end result for this one. And I'm going to move on to the next one. Here's another Studio Calico stamp set. And I'm going to be using the Scallop Circle and Salty Ocean Distress Oxide ink with this blue sheet of cardstock. And once my stamp is onto my acrylic block, I will start to ink it up. And so even though it's another blue, you can still see the image very well. The Distress Oxide inks are, they have very nice pigment to them, so they give bold colors. These can also be used as bookmarks. And that's how this one turned out. Now I'm going to use Twisted Citron. It looks almost the exact same as that piece of paper on the lid of the ink pad, but then when you actually stamp it, it's always much darker. I'm grabbing this little grid circle. It's intended to fit inside of those other circle stamps in the set, but I will be using it individually. And this one is just Distress ink, it's not Distress Oxide. And same process, I'm just randomly stamping it all over my piece of cardstock. And that's what that one looks like. For the next one, I'm using Cracked Pistachio Distress Oxide. Again, the lid is very close to the color of the paper. And for this one, I wanted to do a little bit of a shadow effect, so I'm gonna do full-on ink and then a second stamp without inking, so that my second image is a little bit lighter than the first. And that way my paper has circles of the same color, but some are darker and some are lighter. And there's the result for that one. Now I'm going to pop back to this other stamp set again and grab the little arrow and Spiced Marmalade Distress Oxide ink. And I'm just going to fill this piece of paper with a bunch of little arrows. I thought about stamping them in different directions, but I felt like that would become too chaotic. So I just kept them all pointing in one direction. And in order to help me keep it random, I try not to just follow the line up like I did when I started. I just started moving around the paper instead. But I do want to make sure that I can fit all of my little images on there and not leave too big of a space here or there. So, yeah. Just throw my head, just trying to see what I'm doing. And now I've completed that one. And so I did create some more, but this is what I had on film. I have these 6 patterns, and I did make a bunch of cards with them. These are the cards that I made. And you can see there are some additional patterns in here and additional colors. I will go through each card individually, and I will let you know what I did to accent the card and embellish it and add my sentiment. So these are, again, these are mini slimline cards. They are 3x6 once folded. I make these using white 6x6 paper or 6x6 cardstock, and I just fold it in half. I know the measurements are slightly different for like the technical mini slim cards and the larger slim card that are out there, but I am notorious for not following the rules. Please don't call the craft police on me. This is just the easiest and the least wasteful way for me to create mini slimline cards. So some of these cards have stitched details, not all of them. Some of these have sentiments that were stamped. Some sentiments are die cuts, and some sentiments were stickers. The Happy Mother's Day was actually printed on cardstock and then punched out of the paper. And then some of them are embossed onto paper. And I really liked embellishing these with ephemera from my stash. It's a good way to use up some of that ephemera that you have in your stash, your inventory. You can also add additional details to your background using punches, like the happy birthday card with the stars on it. For the card with the butterflies, I used some acrylic paint inks, so you can also add some paint. And for some of them, I also added glitter stickles for some shimmer and sparkle. And of course, I tried to have a variety of different sentiments for different occasions. For this first card, I used some balloon dies to cut out these little balloon shapes. I drew the strings in with ink with a pen. The sentiment says hooray, it is from my ephemera, and the little girl blowing the candle is from a paper pad. I also added some glitter stickles on the flowers in the background. For this one, I had this girl stamped, I think it's a Jane Davenport stamp set, and then I added a thank you ribbon from my ephemera. For this one, there's some black stitching in the background, a floral die cut, and a Happy Mother's Day sentiment that was printed with the printer and then punched out of the paper. For this one, I added some butterfly stamps and then colored them in with an acrylic Posca pen and added some glitter stickles to the butterflies' bodies and their antenna, and then I embossed the thank you on there and stamped the rest of the sentiment. For this one, it says babies are such a nice way to start people. I added some stitching details to the pattern in the background and a circle punch for the gold paper, a heart die for the sentiment piece, and then a piece of twine for the bow. For this pink card, I stamped the happy birthday. I did a little cluster with some other pattern paper and the little what is that called, the like little medallion thing in the middle with the rosette is a sticker. For the yellow card, I added a heart in the background that was a leftover piece from a different project that I had cut out from my Cricut machine, and then the flowers and the thank you were ephemera pieces along with the little banner piece on the bottom left. For the happy birthday card, the happy birthday was a sticker that was put onto cardstock and then cut out. The cake came from a paper pad. The glitter stars were punches. It was from a punch that I have in my stash. And then for the next one, I have some stitching details in the background, a little cluster from my ephemera stash, and then a simple happy birthday that was stamped onto a piece of scrap paper. For the blue one, I stamped the sentiment onto a speech bubble that I die cut from a die in my stash. And then there's also the little boy that was cut out from a paper pad, a rosette sticker that I had in my stash, and then some glitter stickles in the background. The yay card has some ephemera for the flower and the yay and the banner. And then the final card is a mermaid that is a sticker in addition to the little sentiment, which was also an ephemera piece, and some piece of scrap stamped paper at the top and bottom. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it gave you some ideas for using some of those little mini stamps that we randomly have that come with stamp sets. And I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye.